What's up, guys? It's Addy here, back with another video. And I know it's been a super long time, but I have a lot going on. It's my senior year, but I'm trying to make a lot of videos for you guys, and I'm back with some good NBA news. Um, which is very interesting, but there's a lot to talk about. The free agency and all that's almost over. The season's probably going to start mid-October, and there's preseason games, at least for the Celtics, starting in September. So, good news. But news about the Raptors and the Celtics. And today I'm talking about Jamal Crawford signing with the Boston Celtics and Jimmy Butler getting traded to the Toronto Raptors. Both very interesting and something I'd like to see. But yeah, so a lot to talk about. So let's get right into it. I just want to start out by saying thanks so much for watching, guys, and all the support that you guys give to my channel. If you're new, hit that subscribe button and stick around for some more NBA content and music and all that stuff that I do in my very broad channel. But yeah, so welcome back. And yeah, so let's get into it. Let's talk about Jimmy Butler. So Jimmy Butler is a fantastic player, in my opinion. He has shown time and time again that he can be a top player in this league, and he has a lot to offer when it comes to the court. You know, he has developed an amazing offensive game in the past years, even though he started out as more of a defender in Chicago, and he's shown that he can be part of an amazing team like the Chicago Bulls were when Derrick Rose was good, and then he showed that he could lead a team as well when Rose went down and all the classic guys they left. So it was just Jimmy Butler on that team, and I think he did a fantastic job being the go-to guy. But then, he went to the Timberwolves. He got traded, obviously wanted out of Chicago. And, Chicago didn't have much to offer for him either. They were kind of going into rebuild mode. And it makes sense that he didn't want to be a part of that. But now, Jimmy is again requesting a trade, and he wants out of the Timberwolves, which to me is both makes sense and also doesn't make sense, because I support his decision, because I understand if you're not gelling well with guys, or it just doesn't seem like you're a fit on that team and you want to go somewhere else, you want to do something else. I understand that, it's his life, and it's his choice as a player if he wants to be on that team or not. And that's why he's been pushing off the contract extension and all that, because he knows that he wants to go somewhere else and join a better team, do something else, and that's totally understandable. But I think I really like the setup that the Timberwolves had. I really liked their addition of Jimmy Butler, and I liked their young core of Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. I thought in the future, I felt like they were set up to be an amazing team. But that aside, I guess he just doesn't feel like a fit between those young guys, and that's completely understandable. And there's a lot of talks, there's rumors of him trying to get Kyrie Irving with him in New York, which to me is complete crap, because I don't think that's going to happen at all. Kyrie, I think, is very happy with the Celtics, hopefully, and I think that they just wouldn't be a team that would be a real title contending squad. I like Jimmy, I like Kyrie, and I like that they would team up somewhere. Kristaps Porzingis sounds very interesting, but to me that's not a title contending squad, even though they're in the East and it is a bit easier. You have to go against teams like Houston, LA, and that's before you even get to Golden State. In terms of the finals, they only play one West team, but whoever comes, I don't think they have what it takes to beat that team, just Kyrie and Jimmy Butler, even though New York has a young core, but they don't have a lot of good role players. So to me, that's not the best fit. But there's a lot of other talks. Miami's in there as one of the front runners. They're really hotly pursuing Jimmy Butler, maybe pair him up with Dwayne Wade once again. To me, that's a good option, but for him, I don't think it's what he wants. Obviously, he doesn't have that big a say in what happens, because it's up to the Timberwolves in terms of what deal they actually like. But if I was him and I had to pick on one squad, I would definitely pick going with the Toronto Raptors. To me, the Raptors are fantastic. They have a lot to offer, and especially to a team like the Timberwolves, they can give a lot of good role players. Maybe Van Vliet, he's a great player. Maybe Valanciunas, whoever. They have a couple young guys as well that they can give in there. I wouldn't really give anybody in terms of Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, or Kawhi Leonard. I think those three guys are pretty solid, and they're going to stick where they are. But the rest of the guys, I think there's some maneuvering that could be done to bring in a guy like Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler's fantastic, and he can really help the Raptors. Right now they're right at the cusp of taking down the Celtics. Obviously the Celtics are the favorites, the front runners for going to the NBA Finals, but it could be an open match. You never know. The Celtics didn't play Toronto last year. They were tied in the series. Toronto played fantastic against the Celtics. They were the number one team in the East last year, and they made their best player better by switching DeMar DeRozan and Kawhi Leonard. So to me, obviously, I would go with a chance that Toronto has a chance right now. So if Jimmy Butler can try to get on a team like that, where they have title contending chances without him even being on it, and it's an easier conference, him going to the Toronto Raptors could be very interesting. They can use his defense. I mean, just adding Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler in one offseason would be amazing for their off-court squad and their coaches and everybody, because it just helps so much on the defensive end to have two guys who've had more steals than fouls. They're the only guys in NBA history to have more steals than fouls, which is just crazy. And they're both top-notch defenders, like type A defenders. I mean, they're just insane when it comes to defense, and they would really help, locking down guys like Curry, LeBron, Kevin Durant, all those. If there's one guy who can guard all the guards in the NBA, it's Jimmy Butler. And if there's one guy that can guard any small forward or power forward, it's Kawhi Leonard. They're top-notch defenders, and having both of them on your team is just a sight to see. I'd really like to see that, plus their offensive abilities, which are a lot. In fact, it's not like they're just defensive players. Kawhi is an MVP candidate. Jimmy Butler's an obvious all-star, whether he's in the East or West. But if he comes to the East, he's clearly an all-star, maybe even in the running for like an all-NBA team or something like that, because he's just a fantastic, fantastic player. So going into that even more in depth, looking at it from that perspective, Jimmy Butler is a perfect fit for the Toronto Raptors. It helps them get the edge on the Celtics that they possibly don't have right now, even though they're still being told to be that team to maybe take down the Celtics. The Celtics last year, they only had one competitor really, which was the Cleveland Cavaliers. But now, as you look at it in depth, the Celtics could have a lot of problems coming their way if Jimmy Butler is actually going to that team, because Jimmy Butler has so much to offer and Kawhi Leonard has so much to offer that them together could really do a lot of damage. So to me, this is a perfect fit. And if you do have to let go of some of your players or somebody that you really like, it's worth doing that, because Jimmy Butler has a lot that he can do, and if he goes to a good team, I think it can be really, really good. And I really like Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler as a backcourt as well. Kyle Lowry's a pretty good defender. He's a really good three-point shooter. He can dish out the ball, and having Jimmy Butler on your team as well is just a fantastic 1-2 punch. And then Kawhi Leonard's obviously a top-notch defender. And for Toronto, this is a really good thing to look at, because maybe Jimmy Butler's trade could help Kawhi stay, which was the big story of the offseason, is whether Kawhi would actually stay with the team that they trade for. And same goes for Jimmy Butler. There's no guarantee that he'll want to stay or sign a contract extension with any team that he gets traded to. So if it's a team that has another good player or someone that's kind of interesting for him to want to stay, I feel like if Jimmy and Kawhi got on the same team, it could cause both of them to stay on the Raptors. It shows that they're putting in the efforts and the work to acquire a player for their counterpart, and it also shows that they're trying to make their team a title contender. They're trying to make efforts to get better. If it was just about getting Kawhi Leonard, maybe Kawhi wouldn't care that much because then he'd just think that, they just tried to pull the trigger and hope that he'll stay. But if they get Jimmy Butler, then they're really making efforts to go forward. Because the Celtics could still take down Kawhi Leonard, and if they lose, then possibly it won't help them at all. Then they'll lose Kawhi Leonard too, and maybe they have to go into rebuild. Maybe they have to trade away Kyle Lowry for some picks, and it could go all downhill. Or they could get a guy like Jimmy Butler, try to keep Kawhi Leonard, make a push for the finals, and who knows? Maybe they can challenge a team like Golden State. They have the defensive assets to do it. They could definitely top the East and rule the East easily. And the only team they'd have to worry about is the Celtics. And if they can get around Celtics' young core, and maybe if they get another injury or something like that, then it could be Toronto's year to get to the finals finally. So to me, this is a perfect fit, and I think there's no exact way to go about this trade, but even though Miami's in front, I would say that the Timberwolves, obviously they have no obligation to go to any certain team, but if they did have to pick one for Jimmy Butler's sake, I think Jimmy Butler would want to go to the Toronto Raptors, or should try to go to the Toronto Raptors if he can make any push at all. And the Timberwolves can try to get something good out of this no matter what team it goes to, because Jimmy is a fantastic player and he's got a lot to offer, even though his contract might not be big. And there's just a lot that's not being said yet. But other than Miami, I think Toronto, if they make a good push at this, they could really try to get something good out of this and give very little, because Toronto's no real threat to the Timberwolves at all. They're different conferences. It wouldn't affect them at all. Same with Miami. I mean, different conferences. I think Miami's push for Jimmy Butler wouldn't do as much. I don't think that makes them a title contender or even close to the Celtics. But if the Raptors can find a way to get him, as an NBA fan, that makes a lot of sense to me, and it's very intriguing. As a Celtics fan, I definitely wouldn't want this to happen, even though it would add a little more competition into the ring and a little more kind of suspicion, kind of worry as a Celtics fan. But as an NBA fan, I think this is very cool, very possible as well. And it would, be another team that could possibly take down Golden State or Houston or whoever comes out of the West. It just makes the East better. And that's something I hope for, that balance in the coming future, that the East and West can become more equal. So Jimmy coming to the East will definitely be better for the East. And maybe the Raptors can try to get something out of this. But moving on to Jamal Crawford. Jamal Crawford is one of my favorite players from a long time ago. I mean, he's just a fantastic ball handler. He's got a lot of experience. He's a veteran player now, obviously, in his late 30s, and he's still a free agent right now. And there's a lot of talks about where he can go. He was also on the Timberwolves, but right now he's a free agent. And to me, I think Jamal Crawford, he has a lot of options on where he can go, and a lot of teams, he could just try to get on the Warriors again if he wanted to. But I don't get that sense from him. Hopefully he doesn't do that. But to me, if there's a perfect situation for him to go to, it's the Celtics, because the Celtics are a team that he wouldn't get any hate for joining, and he definitely helped the young guys. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, these guys can really, really use a guy like Jamal Crawford at their disposal to, ask for certain help, and he can be a very good experience presence on the Celtics, which they don't have much of. Al Horford is the oldest guy on the Celtics in terms of experience, and he hasn't been real deep in the playoffs. Jamal's been playing for a long time. He's had explosive games. He has amazing ball handling skills, which you could help the guards. He's a good shooter. He's a good facilitator, and he's a good sacrificial player. He's fine coming off the bench. He's not one of those guys that really needs to be in the front running. He's the guy that understands his role on a team and plays it perfectly. So to me, the Celtics have had problems with Jabari Bird. There's a chance for them to maybe open up and get another guy. I think Jamal Crawford is the perfect position for them to go to, because he is a great role player on a championship team. I think if there's one guy that can really fit that bench role really well, it's Jamal Crawford. Obviously, he is reaching the end of his career, and he's not going to be super productive and not like he has been in the past few years. But that's very evident. I mean, all of us know what what stage he's at and his age and all that. It's not expected that he'll drop 20 a game and 10 assists and all that. It's about the experience he'll give, the veteran presence he gives, and just the all-around help that he gives to those guards on the Celtics. So I think the Celtics are trying to make a push here, add another guy, because even if Toronto doesn't get this guy, they could still be a little bit of a issue, because Kawhi Leonard is like Kyrie. He's been to the finals. He's won a championship. He knows what it's like to be deep in the playoffs. He doesn't fear away from the competition. So adding in a guy like Jamal Crawford, who has a lot of experience, a veteran presence that they might not have. Gordon Hayward and Al Horford are like their real veterans right now. So I definitely think that if they add more guys with a lot of potential, it gives them a lot of good hooks on other players, because the Warriors, when you play the Warriors, which is most likely going to be the matchup, the Celtics and Warriors, the only thing that I think really hits them, other than the talent that the Warriors have, is the fact that they've been to the finals like for the last 4 years, and they really know what they're doing there now. It's very clear to them how to win a championship. They've went against the best player in the world, LeBron James, and beat him 3 times. So they know what they're doing. It's not new to them. For the Celtics, a lot of them will be in this new situation that they haven't been through before. They haven't faced this deep in the playoffs, and they're so young that it's understandable. If Tatum reaches the finals in his second year, that is a huge deal. He played amazing last year itself in his rookie season, but if he can reach the finals in his second year, Brown in his third year, I mean, these guys have never been this far. Even Al Horford and Gordon Hayward have never been this far. So it'll just be a completely new zone that they've never been in, and something for them to learn off of. But if they can get a guy like Jamal, even though Jamal Crawford hasn't been to the finals, he's got a lot of experience that can really, really help this team and help them go far. So to me, Jamal Crawford is a perfect situation for the Celtics to get. And instead of having so many young guys coming off the bench, they'll have one guy who's a sure thing of a performer, and he knows what he's doing, and he's got a lot in his arsenal. So I think this is a great fit, and I really hope that the Celtics are able to pull the trigger. And same with Toronto. As an NBA fan, I'm going to be really excited to see what happens with that. Maybe Jimmy Butler comes to the Celtics. I made a video about that earlier. Go check that out. It's my last video. And if you haven't seen that already, but Toronto could also be a great option. They're in the East. For him, it's perfect. For the Timberwolves, they could get a lot out of this. And there's a lot to see here, so it's kind of a waiting game as a fan, and we just got to see what happens. So yeah, guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Keep supporting my channel. Keep coming back for videos. And yeah, thanks so much, guys. Peace.